So today I'm here with Mustafa Abubaker. We gone back quite a ways, but maybe not as much in recent years. But we went to high school together. Had a good time there, and seems like life has taken us in some different directions, but also some similar directions as well. And so today we're here to talk to him about his latest book, which goes by "We Are Also Home." And I mean, maybe let's start off with that title, you know, and get into that because it alludes to something, but and which is good for like a title
Yeah,
because it makes you wonder like, okay, well, what's this thing about?
yeah.
So let's start there.
Thank you, Elijah,
Sure.
first for having me. And as people, where we live and where we spend most of our time within actual homes that we own or that we rent or that we're even staying the night in for a temporary period of time, say with a friend. It's my opinion that that physical structure is not, it cannot be your only place of comfort or of solace, because nowadays people, while we are working from home a lot, nowadays people have to leave, they have to leave home, for a number of reasons, whether that's work, travel, obviously, any type of extracurricular activities, meeting friends. When you leave your home, you're you feel as if you're, some people feel as if when they leave their house, they need to get back to it as soon as possible,
Mm-hmm.
or they need to, or they just want that feeling back. And there's that saying that there's no place like home, right? When I came up with the title for this book, it was actually a text from my mom when she texted me in English that we are also home. And when I got that text in early 2020, something in me clicked because of the panorama pandemic, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
We were at home, and the plain English that she wrote in that iMessage struck a chord with me because it instantly clicked for me that as people, our bodies are also our homes, right?
Mm.
And that to me, however eat pray love esque that is, that was my way of coming up with the backbone and the spine for this novel, based on that assertion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we as people, we are also, like, we ourselves are also homes. Like, people can be homes, right? It doesn't matter where you are with your partner or your loved one or your husband or your wife, as long as you're with them,
Mm-hmm.
that's home, right? So
Yeah.
I wanted to convey that title and message through the title of this novel.
Awesome. So, with that in mind, you touched on your family a little bit. For those who are going to be watching this,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about you. What's your background? What do people need to know about Mustafa that might inform them when they're reading this?
Well, for those interested in zodiac signs out there, yes, I am a Leo. I was born in I was born July 25th, 1993, on a Sunday in Queens, New York,
Okay.
and I'm my parents' only child. My younger brother Saad, he passed away in April 2012, and my younger sister Rija passed away when she was only 1 or 2 years old of SIDS. So I like to say I became only child. I moved down here to Georgia in '98 to Norcross, Georgia, where I attended Duluth Middle School. And shortly that year, when I was switching schools, I moved to Buckhead in 2008, and which is where I've lived since with my family. And I think that my background really boils down to, here's this 27-year-old kid who's done more in the writing and freelancing space than he can almost put into words, because when you look at wanting to do things without waiting for permission to, especially with the internet, started doing that consistently. So that
Yeah.
was through freelance writing, through interviewing artists, through writing artist biographies, being heavily involved with the music industry at one point.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think the last time I remember anything kind of popping up on my social media feed from you was a lot of music
a lot,
oriented.
a lot. And music definitely informed this novel too, but it also informs much of my background. And I feel like it's a huge part of who I am as a person.
Hmm.
Although I don't play any instruments, I don't. I have a piano, but I'm learning
Hmm.
slowly. But when it comes to music, I'm more of a artist, not a musician. And I'm more of a person who will listen to a song and be able to understand how that song will transition to another song that I also listen to.
Hmm.
And then that love for music just turned into writing about music. While I was writing fiction as early as 16, Elijah, I was also working on music writing at the same time, if not
Gotcha.
concurrently, right? Which is the same thing.
Yeah, I imagine they
Um,
informed each other too. They kind of bounced ideas off of each other in a sense. So
Absolutely.
poetry and lyricism can sometimes you know kind of coalesce into the same universe.
I will get inspired by lyrics and songs that will go and inspire me, and they have to go and write a whole short story. I'm a writer who's written a short story inspired by the song Jasmine by the artist Jai Paul, right? That's just one of many instances. So I've went on to write for Rolling Stone magazine, for Complex magazine, for Mass Appeal magazine, for Pigeons and Planes, for Preem magazine, an independent black-owned magazine based in Los Angeles. I did cover stories with Pierre Bourne, who is Playboy Cardi's producer and an artist in his own right. K Camp, an very underappreciated and overlooked artist from Marietta, Georgia, as well as Alec Benjamin, a singer-songwriter from the overlooked Phoenix, Arizona.
Hmm.
So that was recent. And dating back to 2013, it should be noted that at 19 years old, I had a byline in Rolling Stone magazine. So if you've seen the movie Almost Famous, I don't know how much closer it can get, and I don't know what I have. That's just the facts. And also, if you've heard of an artist named Russ, I was the first person to interview him, and the entire music industry and all 2.2 billion of his followers, they know that if they do a simple Google search. That's all I'm saying. Um, Now, having said that, I consider myself a writer first and foremost, with a deep passion for music, but an even deeper passion for storytelling, which
Okay.
is why, after so many years of giving myself to the music industry and building up my reputation within it, I want to circle back to why I fell in love with writing in the first place,
Hmm.
which was novel writing, which was poetry writing. And that's me in about as big of a
Hmm.
nutshell as I can verbally
Well,
exclaim.
it's an impressive nutshell for sure, especially
That's some
that,
nutshell.
getting that byline right out of high school.
Right out of high
So.
school. When I posted on Facebook, we were getting 200 reactions.
Hmm.
People were losing their minds because they know Rolling Stone magazine is a brand name.
Yeah.
It's a household name entity,
Hmm.
and
It's a game changer.
it's a game
So,
changer, and it changed everything for me.
well, you mentioned that writing was kind of your first love in a sense.
Yep.
You have the appreciation and the deep interest and passion with music side, but uh, you've mentioned to me before that your first memory of really ever reading was pretty important to you, and that was impactful. So you want to tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Um, I was a huge reader as a kid, right?
Hmm.
I would read the Harry Potter books because I would go stand in line at midnight and purchase them.
Yeah.
And then I would come home and I would read them with the flashlight under the covers,
Hmm.
like page to page. Like I finished the whole thing in a night.
Yeah.
And what stood out to me was how she created this world, right, where there were houses, Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff. Which, by the way, I think I'm a Ravenclaw.
I am
But
too, actually.
there we are.
I get Slytherin sometimes, but I
Yeah,
think over the years I've kind of matured into a Ravenclaw. No
exactly.
shade to any of the Slytherins out there. So
And I really wanted to transition from reading Harry Potter and fantasy books to something more adult. And then I read The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Um, which
it's an amazing book.
which is an amazing book, and which covers so much human emotion and depth that it will make you emotional reading it. So then you discover what words can do to a person, right? Those are my earliest memories of reading for pleasure, not just for school. Um, in school, I think I early on in the days I did use Spark Notes, but I grew later to appreciate reading the actual books, and I just fell in love with that old book smell too sometimes, and
Yeah,
even that new book smell. Um, and I think it just became a welcome practice in my house.
I think you make a good point about the old book smell, or even again the new book
Yeah,
smell, with that tactile having it in your hands, having it right here
yeah,
where you can read it. These screens are great, but there's something about an actual book and being able to kind of, put the screen away for a bit and just lose yourself in another story that's not hyper stimulative.
yeah.
There's a relaxation that comes with reading like a real quality book that you don't get from even the best, um,
Yeah.
film experiences or cinematic
Mm.
experiences. They're amazing in a great way, but in a different way. And that's one of the things that had me interested about interviewing you today was the fact that you, in a day where we are so focused on digital media, social media. We're filming on multiple cameras here today.
Yeah.
Like I'm a photographer, of course I love digital media, but to hear someone from our generation that's still passionate about producing a quality reading experience when reading seems to be pushed to the side lately, that's it's interesting, but it's also valuable.
Yeah.
And so I mean I'm just ecstatic
Thank you. Thank you
to
so
know that
much.
there's still, you know, I wouldn't quite call us young authors anymore, but younger
Yeah.
compared to some of our influences.
Most definitely.
So, well, speaking of influences, what would you say is um, maybe let's take a twofold approach.
Yeah.
What would you say is probably your biggest writing influence, and then also what's your biggest music influence? Since I know
Yeah.
music tends to inform this book specifically. So,
Yeah. Well, I think my biggest writing influence is hard because it changes every day, right?
mm-hmm.
But I think today, um, my my biggest writing influence, honestly, it would have to be the my biggest writing influence. I really appreciate Ocean Vuong.
Okay.
He's uh he's a professor of creative writing in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
He's the author of a beautiful book called On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. It's a beautiful novel that's half narrative and half poetry, right?
Okay. It's an
I'm
interesting
really
combo. Yeah.
very, very,
Mm-hmm.
very like, and it's groundbreaking, right? To be honest, and I think he's a revolutionary in his field, and um, I've watched all his interviews. I've read his books, and he influences me a lot because he's not afraid to break the rules. It's because I think he knows the rules. So that's why I think he's able to be so dynamic in his delivery. Um, that's why, right? So Ocean Vuong is like for sure one of my biggest inspirations. When it comes to music, however, right now, my biggest music inspiration, to be honest, is my biggest music inspiration right now, or maybe of all time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? and this answer is gonna make a lot of people mad, but I think
Those are the best answers,
I'm
though.
gonna say it's Kanye West for me.
Yeah,
Because Kanye, to me, who's also not a musician, Kanye is an artist, right?
yeah,
And he comes from such a distinct point in society, with his mother being a professor of English in the Chicago college system, and his father Ray West doing multiple things while most recently volunteering his time in the islands below the United States.
hmm
Yeah, Kanye influences me because he has he has always been unafraid to do what he wants to do.
yeah. He's also very multifaceted.
Yeah,
I've seen, and to your point about some people might be, frustrated to hear Kanye West
yeah,
promoted,
that's fine.
but no, like I don't. Yeah, they can get frustrated if they'd like, but I wonder if it's because he doesn't fit in a box.
Yeah,
He he like you said, he's not just a musician, he's an artist, he's a thinker. uh, he has lots of hits. Sometimes he misses, but he's not afraid to miss.
no,
He goes out there, he tries new things, he reinvents himself constantly. And I think that's notable. It's also, I mean, to me it's impressive. I don't like all of his music. Some of his songs I love,
yeah,
but and some of his projects I don't always get. But
yeah,
I don't think I am entitled to get it sometimes. I think it's just uh, he 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 creates, and I think that is immensely valuable. And so I can definitely understand why you would
yeah.
cite him as one of your biggest influences.
Yeah, I mean,
So
Kanye's story and his rise to the top is has always been something I've been in awe of, and I've maybe never been more inspired than when I left the Yeezus concert tour
mm-hmm.
in Atlanta. Like it was next level. So shout out to Kanye, and we want to see you live a long life, Kanye. I want to see Kanye West make it to 100 years. Like,
Yeah.
we're losing too many of our rap legends early. Like, we just
Mm-hmm.
lost DMX. We're losing Juice World, Mac Miller, Pop Smoke. We're losing these guys when they should live long lives,
Yeah.
and it's unacceptable. So we gotta take care of ourselves. And so Kanye, so I salute you.
Yeah. It's you make a point that we are losing a lot of our hip hop artists, our rap legends, and we lose them rather early, especially compared to more of your rock artists who's
For
Mick
sure.
Jagger's in his 70 or 80s now and still
Hmm.
performing, albeit you know
Yeah.
he's not performing like he used to.
Yeah.
but but
Well, hip hop is such a young art form. Hip
yeah.
hop hasn't even been around for 100 years,
hmm
and you have those who are making hip hop passing away sometimes as young as their 20s, and it's ridiculous,
and they
So
it seems
it's
like they're leaving us before they have a good chance to even pass anything down besides just their body of work. They're not given the opportunity, and or we're not given the opportunity to learn from them, and to really get to know them on a deeper level. Granted, you can learn a lot from someone's music, but there's you know like I mean I think there's so much that people like Kanye and Jay Z and um, they just have to offer, that even though they've put out so much so far,
yeah,
they still have. And again, I would love to see Kanye again, like you said, make it to 100, Jay Z make it to 100, and just really, I'd like to hear what they have to say at 100 too,
yes,
because
yes.
they're seeing our world change just like we're seeing it, and it's you know I don't know, I just think their insights are going to be really interesting though.
And we have to hear them. We
Mm-hmm.
have to protect them, no matter how much you disagree with Kanye about his comments. I know a lot of people aren't happy with him. It is what it is. I mean, this is the price you pay for what for what you sacrificed
Yeah.
for the people. Um, to make the world a better place. That's what Kanye West, I think, strives to do,
Hmm.
and I think that's why I think what he's most passionate about now. Now that he's accumulated all this wealth and property, and fame, and all this excess material, it's about now he's sort of locked in. That's why he influenced a lot of of this book in particular as well.
Okay.
Um, he he wanted to, I think he wanted to always make music that could speak to different art forms, right? And it wasn't this book, but it was the book before that I lifted a lyric from the song Power, and I made that the title of the book before this one. That was released through Golf Media on Tyler the Creator's iOS app.
Hmm.
So Kanye has been like a long influence to me, and
Okay.
I definitely I could speak for hours about him.
Sure.
I just think he's great.
Yeah, I think you touch on an interesting point about just the humanity that comes out of Kanye, and all artists. And I think that again, like you mentioned, people are a little that they might not always agree with the things that Kanye has said, but I would think that Kanye has always agreed with the things that Kanye has said, in a sense that he's human and he makes mistakes, and that the element of humanity and approaching kind of difficult situations and difficult emotions at times. I think a little bit of that does end up coming out in your book. Um, Specifically, there's some. I think there are three major themes that come out in your book of family, invisibility, and love as well.
Yeah.
Would you like to touch on that a bit?
Yeah. So the themes in We Are Also Home. The themes in here. I think it's centered around family. In this book, you have two families that are very different from each other.
Okay.
One is well off. The other is like barely paycheck to paycheck, right? And opposites attract in this book. So Timur, he falls for Yara, right? And Yara is well off, and Timur is not.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between their families almost is a snapshot of what modern Karachi, Pakistan society is like today.
Mm-hmm.
And this is coming from someone who's visited, right?
Okay.
And who went like every year for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
And who like regularly like talked to my uncles about like stuff like throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. And you were saying that your family originally immigrated from Pakistan as well.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So this place is like any place in that it has its nice areas and its bad areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the nice areas, everything is almost done in privacy, and everything is almost done behind closed doors. Even things like the sale of alcohol, or you know, public displays of affection between the two or more genders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. So the families in this book, that's why that's such a big theme, because they're so different from each other. The invisibility theme, right, in this book, is a long metaphor for how these Muslim women are overlooked throughout the whole wide world, either because they have a hijab on, because they have the burqa on, because at times they wear the full, because sometimes they wear the full like gown where you can only see their eyes, right? and they'll wear that to like the mall or like the movie theater or like the grocery store because this is America.
Mm-hmm.
But in this book, the invisibility is triggered, right? It's triggered by anxiety, and paranoia that has like Yara in like a chokehold, like she's in a grip with this thing, because she can't control when it happens. But what she doesn't know, and what the reader has to infer from the incidents in which she does render her body invisible involuntarily, is the fact that, oh, this is just a metaphor for how we are overlooked, because of our faith or because of the color of our skin or because of our appearance. And lastly, when it comes to love, well, that is something I think a lot of us are trying to figure out. For what we know now and for what I know now, self-love is one of the best kinds of love out there. You got to start with that first. If you don't start with that, you can't move on. So that's step one, right? So once you have that in your life, then I think what is love between Yara and Timur in the book is born out of a trauma bond almost.
Oh, gotcha.
And I think that's what it's born out of, because there's death in the book. I'm not going to say who, but there is like the sense of mortality and the fleeting sense of humanity in the book that has effects on young people. And these are sheltered kids. Even Yara, who grew up with nothing to want, she is still sheltered. She's still a little naive. There's no internet usage in the book, so there's none of that. Their idea of love stems from what they've experienced together. And what they have experienced together is something they can never erase from their memory, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's love to them. And maybe it worked for them. As the author, these characters often feel like invisible friends or something like that. And you start to think of them as real people in your life. And then you just start to hope that, hey, I hope they're doing good wherever they are. And if there's another book that speaks about them, then I guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
but
you get to revisit and follow up.
Absolutely.
So, you mentioned wherever they are. The book, not to give too much away, but the book starts in Karachi, and it ends up, I believe, shifting over to Atlanta. Correct? Is there any reason you went in that direction? Or did you pull from what you know? Did you?
Yeah, I wanted to bring it back to Atlanta, one, because I think my studies in writing always kind of showed me the power of a good shift in setting, of a good shift in setting, right?
Sure.
And honestly, when it came to places that I could write about, that I wanted them to go, I wanted them to come here so that I could almost round out the novel on a high note and almost bring them into my world where I live, which is where I wrote the book anyway.
Sure.
And it offered like a lot of closure that way, and I think it also made sense because what they perceive to be America is fully realized when they arrive here, and they realize that's actually where they belong, and they feel at home. They end up buying a house here and settling down um, and working and finding work and moving on from what they left behind in Pakistan.
And would you say that change in setting helps to both be obviously a literary device, but also to really highlight the changes that are going on in them too?
I think it's more of a literary device that forces those characters to miss where they used to live.
Okay.
So I think that's sort of what I was trying to do. I wanted them to reflect on their when you're away from something, then you can think about it
Yeah.
differently. And I think that's what happened to them at the end of the book. That's when they raised the question, what was a better home for me in the long run? Was it Pakistan or was it America?
Or is it just
Or
different?
is it just different?
Awesome. We've talked a little bit of your influences, but specifically with this book, were there any just like random little like burst of inspiration you got from maybe some of the more like unlikely places, like you're on a walk or something, and you said obviously you got the book title from the text from your mom, but
Yeah.
were there any little just things that, if right place, right time as far as inspiration goes?
Yeah, I think when I was working on it, I realized that there was an element of music that I could put in the book that would arrive from like real life situations, right? And that stemmed from a a um a interview I did with an artist for a completely unrelated article. And that ended up forming the backbone for much of 3 scenes in the novel that were ultimately like lifted from that interview, sort of dramatized and like mocked,
Sure.
and then put in there like a puzzle piece almost. And it felt like one of those instances where that's the missing final puzzle piece.
Are you able to mention who that artist is, or is that
Yeah, absolutely.
for people
It was an artist by the name of Reza Town. He's a multidisciplinary artist in Florida. And we did an interview, and it occurred to me that his quotes were beneficial to Yara's character development. And something in my head just clicked where I want to break down walls. Like that's why I wanted to bring that in and put that quote in there.
Sure.
And secondly, when I believe I was in Oaxaca, Mexico, like maybe when I first started writing the book. And I went on a early morning drive in a taxi to this cascaded waterfall, and it was like maybe an hour drive, but I left at 6 a.m. because I wanted to beat the crowds.
Yeah.
So we get to the cascaded water to the mountain, and he's parked there. We actually had breakfast before, and then we ate breakfast, and then we had coffee, and then he stayed there, and I went on the hike, and then I went up there, and then when I got to the top, and I saw like the frozen waterfall, something occurred to me to make this book like accessible, and put large font inside the book. One, because I've seen many people, especially older readers, struggle with reading like fine print.
Yeah.
There is no fine print, right? I don't want you to mistake what you read. So when you open this book, it hits you in your face. That's a stylistic choice.
Sure.
That's even for people with bad eyesight. And furthermore, I think it makes me an advocate for people with disabilities, especially reading disabilities, and it also makes me a accessibility hero and an advocate for accessibility. And that's why I did it, because I think that while we have such a you know while we have such a rigid like art form in a book as opposed to a TV or a TV show or a movie, we still have a book that is somewhat like frigid and frozen in ink and page. Like we can still play around with the content of it.
Sure.
Which is the one and only time I'll use that word. But with the writing of it, because that in itself is our domain, right? And I think that I think more publishers should consider increasing the font sizes of most novels.
Yeah,
Maybe not to this extent, but
certainly.
I want to start that conversation.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was just talking with someone the other day about um, just general accessibility when it comes to technology. And you open up your iPad or your iPhone, and you can go in, change your font size if it's day mode, night mode, but you don't really see that with books too much. It's usually, a lot of times people trying to cram as many words into the pages as they can,
Sure.
which is, there's a reason they do that, but
I'd rather you read my book twice than read it halfway through and put it down and never
struggle through it.
Struggle, yeah.
Because then you're not going to get the point. If you're struggling through it, it's not enjoyable, and then again, ultimately it's not accessible.
Absolutely.
And
which is the author's ego, and there was no ego in this book. There's no. That's why I made this choice. Like, it's not like it's all just. It's for the art of the novel itself. It's not even for me. Like,
and it's great
that's why I did it.
And it's great for more people to enjoy it too.
Yeah, that's all I want.
So
I want people to enjoy it, and I want people to take away things from it that they can apply in their lives, and I want them to. I hope it gives them something to feel.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, this is also your third novel, which I think we've already mentioned that. But do any of your previous novels, do they play into this at all? Are they connected? Is there any overlap? Or are there recurring themes? Is like when you sit down? I know I'm asking you a million questions.
For sure.
When you sit down to put out a work like this, is there something that you think is as you as the author, is there something that's core that keeps coming up in your writing?
Well, I think it's the ethnicity. I've always written about characters from Pakistan, or characters who are in Pakistan. Why is that? Well, I think it's because I want to create. I want to have people in the literary canon that are diverse, but not just diverse, that represent where my parents grew up, right? Almost because even though I'm an American citizen, I was, born in New York, lived there for a while, grew up in Georgia, doing stuff any American kid would do. Still, felt more connected to Pakistan than maybe most other American Pakistani kids, and I think that's been the common theme throughout all three. Maybe it's because I relate to them better, and I think that I want more for them, and I want kids in Pakistan to read it and see if they see if that character makes sense to them. If that person, if they're like, oh, that character reminds me of my friends, or that character reminds me of my sister, then I think I did my job as a writer. And I think part of doing your job as a writer is to, create characters that you have some authority to speak on.
Yeah.
And I think I have some, if not much, authority to speak on and craft these characters in a way that makes sense. I think that's been one of the main, if not the main theme, throughout all three.
And just a quick plug for the other two. What are your other two books?
So the other two books, I'll start with the very first one. It's a coming of age novella titled The Surrogate, and that is a book that is available on Amazon. It's about Faraz, who is a adoptee father who loses his wife Raya in an accident, adopts a child by the name of Fahad from a Chicago via Karachi, Pakistan orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire book is epistolary, which is just the fancy word for written in second person
Okay.
point of view, in the form of letters.
Mm.
So each chapter is a long letter. And then you have a long letter at the end from the adopted kid. My second book is called Letting Everything Go. It's a dystopian drama. My friend Blake Wallen, who earned his MFA from George Mason University, who just put out his book Papal Glow on Maudlin House.
Mm-hmm.
He called it a he called it a subversion. He called it a twisted subversion of melodrama or
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
Like twisted nihilistic subversion of melodrama, right?
Gotcha.
So it's about two people in the year 2050 in Los Angeles, Eunice and Aziza, and they're trapped in their penthouse, like $1 million penthouse in LA, and the apocalypse happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Russia actually bombs the United States
Okay.
for whatever reason in the year 2050. And there's radiation outside. They have to survive. It's 10 chapters. Shout out to Matthew Castellanos, man. Matthew, he slid into my Instagram DMs.
Mm-hmm.
He told me he was working closely with Tyler, the creator, and he asked me if I wanted to write stuff for the app.
Mm-hmm.
Then he sent me the link to Tyler, the creator, going on Jimmy Kimmel talking about the app.
Yeah.
And I lost my mind because I was like, oh my God, this app is like the real deal. This guy's going on late night talk show. Jimmy Kimmel knows the platform that my work is on. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, I was so happy. I've never been happier as a writer to receive that kind of validation.
That's awesome.
So I actually flew out to LA. Then I met Matthew. I met Johnny. Fun fact, Golf Media, which published my second novel as an ebook, they were owned by Whale Rock Industries.
Mm-hmm.
Whale Rock Industries was founded by Lloyd Braun. Co-founded by Lloyd Braun.
Yeah.
And if you know anything about show business, you know Lloyd Braun was one of the co-creators of Seinfeld. I never got the chance to meet Lloyd Braun, but George Costanza's mother always compared him to Lloyd Braun in the show.
Yeah.
Now you know why. Because he was such a dynamic figure in entertainment. And he took a chance on this punk skater kid in Tyler Okonma from, Ocaga, California. And Tyler took that and ran. We had a good few seasons, but ultimately the app folded. After they sold 3 shows off the app to Adult Swim, 1 to Vice, and then 1 to regular Cartoon Network.
Well, that's a good stable you got there.
That's a very good stable. However, I was not in the running for any of that.
Yeah.
But it was good to be amongst that.
Sure, that energy
in that company. So when I went out I stayed in West Hollywood. Their office was there, like 2016, and I actually wrote the first chapter there with Matthew and Johnny, with Matthew C and Johnny Black, and then I worked with JP Alanis on the art direction for each of the covers. And yeah, those guys, what can I say? They were professionals. They took a chance on a college student, and they, we made it do what it do, baby. So
you said that the app's no longer around, but where can they find the second novel?
They cannot find it. It's actually been taken down.
Gotcha.
I have the PDF on my hard drive.
Yeah.
And
it's gonna be the lost file.
It's gonna be a lost file, and who knows? Maybe I'll re-release it.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure I signed the contract that said I gave up my rights to it.
Gotcha.
For their platform. But maybe since the platform's gone now, I could put it back out.
Might be
so
something
let's
to
see.
look into.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And with that in mind too, then for We Are Also Home, where can people find that?
So this book is available on Amazon, and it's available in Kindle, on the paperback, and it's also available for Audible.
Okay.
So I know audiobooks are very big right now.
Yeah.
And that's free to download.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah. And if anyone wants to reach out to you or collaborate with you, or just maybe pick your brain a little bit further, where can they reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Twitter a lot.
Okay.
So hit me up at MUSABU1993. That's Moose Abu 1993. So hit me up on there. I got Twitter for iPhone, and I'm always happy to chat and tweet. Yeah, I'm available. I want to be a resource. I want to mentor aspiring writers of color. So if you're watching this and you want to write something, call me, like tweet me. Let's set something up. Let's have a conference call, or
Sure.
let's hop on the phone. Let's talk, because nothing makes me happier than seeing people progress in positive ways.
And I don't think there's been a better time in history either for people to connect and to reach out and to learn from each other and like you said, mentor. And it's you're a tweet away.
Yeah,
So.
I'm a tweet away, and I'm not hoarding any knowledge, because I don't think there's no point in that.
I've never understood that.
Yeah.
And the person you mentioned too, Tyler the Creator, another artist I'd like to see hit 100.
Yeah,
just I've never seen him ever shy away from just going for it or putting things out there. And he's
never.
I'd say in his own ways he's just as controversial as Kanye, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
And he I imagine there's a lot more Tylers out there too. And so just networking with everybody, and just I don't think people lose from collaborating. I don't think anyone loses from sharing of ideas or mentorship. I think the best thing sometimes a mentor can see is when their mentee surpasses them too. I think that's a great legacy.
Absolutely.
So.
There's something to say if you don't have a mentor in your artistic field or your profession, then it's hard to know which way to go and which way to take. I mean, I made my mentors Professor Tony Grooms, who is a 2-time Lillian Smith Award winner, and who wrote an incredible novel called The Vain Conversation, which was a historical fiction book centered around anti-Black injustice in Alabama. And he was one of my mentors. And another one of my mentors, I want to give a warm shout out to Dr. Vikas Khwaja, the Ellen Douglas Professor of English at Agnes Scott University College in Decatur. Dr. Khwaja, you inspired me a lot, you helped me a lot, and showed me the right things to do. And the best thing I can do is pass that info on, just like you said, man.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what it's about. That's all it's about at the end of the day. Yeah, man.
Well, I think we're about up on time today, but I want to thank you so much for inviting me to your home and having this conversation with me. Again,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mustafa.
Thank you so much.
Again, the book is We Are Also Home by Mustafa Abubaker, and I highly recommend anyone who's watching this pick it up, check it out, and just enjoy more stories, new stories, especially from different points of view. And just I really just want to say, in kind of a closing remark, I love that theme of okay. Well, I guess we really are out of time, but I do love the theme of invisibility and people just getting the whatever. Fuck it, I'll cut it out. We'll figure it out. Actually, let's like redo that last section. Or no, I think it probably works. So cool, man.
That was awesome, bro. That was the best interview
I hope that
I've ever
wasn't
done.
too rocky.
No, that was amazing. That's so good.
That
was the best.